Can a song kill you? Not in a metaphorical sense. I'm not asking if a song can break your heart. I'm asking, can a specific sequence of notes, a particular combination of melody and lyric, actually compel a person to end their own life? Most would say no. It's the stuff of ghost stories, of campfire tales, of urban legends. But for one piece of music, that legend became terrifyingly real. It was a melody born in despair, and for decades a trail of mysterious deaths seemed to follow in its wake. They said that in Vienna, a woman drowned herself while clutching its sheet music. In London, a woman took her own life after requesting it on the radio over and over. In cities from Budapest to New York, people were found gone from the world, with the song's haunting melody still spinning on a nearby record player. They called it Gloomy Sunday. The world knew it as the Hungarian Suicide Song. Over 100 deaths were attributed to this single piece of music, a song so potent, so dangerous, that radio networks allegedly banned it from the airwaves, fearing for the public's safety. So, what was the truth? Is this song a supernatural killer, a psychological trigger? Or is the real story something far more tragic and far more complex? Our story begins not with a curse, but with a man. A Hungarian pianist and composer named Rezső Seress. He was living in Paris in the early 1930s, trying and failing to establish himself as a serious musician. The world around him was a grim place. The Great Depression had cast a long shadow across the globe, and in his native Hungary, extremist political influence was on the rise. This was the backdrop for his creation, a world steeped in anxiety. Post-war Hungary was a nation still reeling from its losses in the Great War, a country that had been stripped of 2/3 of its territory. Hope was a currency in short supply. Seress himself was plagued by what sources describe as a mix of private despair and a deep worry for the future of the world. It was in this state of mind that he composed a simple, mournful piano melody in C minor. The original lyrics he wrote for it were not about a lost lover. They were a direct reflection of the chaos he saw. He titled it Vége Vilányok, The World is Ending. The lyrics spoke of an autumn where all love has died on earth. They described cities being wiped out, shrapnel making music, and meadows colored red with human blood. It was a bleak protest against the heartless, greedy, and wicked nature of man. The song ended not with a resolution, but with a quiet, desperate prayer. People are sinners, Lord. They make mistakes. The world has ended. This was the soul of the song, not a romantic tragedy, but a lament for a broken world. However, this version is not the one the world would come to fear. Soon after, a poet named Laszlo Javor wrote a new set of lyrics for Seress's melody. Inspired by a recent breakup with his fiancée, Javor retitled the song Szomorú Vasárnap, Sad Sunday. His version was a regret for the passing of a beloved, a promise to meet again in the afterlife. It was this version, the one about personal heartbreak, that became popular, while the original, political protest was essentially forgotten. The curse had found its narrative. The song, with its new, tragically romantic lyrics, was first recorded in Hungarian in 1935 by Pial Kalmar. But its journey was just beginning. In 1936, it was recorded in English, with lyrics by Sam M. Lewis. Lewis's version leaned heavily into the theme of suicide. It was now explicitly a song about a person planning their own death to rejoin a lost lover. It was this version that began to attract attention, but the song's international reputation would be cemented 5 years later by a voice synonymous with beauty and tragedy. In 1941, jazz legend Billie Holiday released her version. Her haunting, emotional delivery transformed the song. It became an anthem of sorrow. The record label itself marketed it as the Hungarian Suicide Song. Holiday's own difficult life seemed to merge with the song's narrative, giving the legend an undeniable power and a human face, and the media ran with it. As reports of suicides, often unverified, began to surface, they were immediately linked to the song. It created a feedback loop of fear and fascination. The legend grew with each telling. This was the era of sensationalist journalism, and a cursed song was a story too good to check. The panic became so significant that the BBC prohibited the broadcast of Billie Holiday's version. The reason given was that it would be detrimental to morale during the war. They permitted instrumental versions, but the human voice, Holiday's voice, was deemed too dangerous for the airwaves. The ban, which was only lifted in 2002, did nothing to quell the legend. In fact, it only added to the song's mystique. It was now officially the song so sad, the government had to protect you from it. Hello, my friends. I'm sure that as you listen to this, your itch to hear the actual song must be through the roof. Unfortunately, I can't use it here for copyright reasons. Nevertheless, let me share with you the translated lyrics. Here's the original Hungarian text is translated by Rezső Seress. It is autumn and the leaves are falling. All love has died on earth. The wind is weeping with sorrowful tears. My heart will never hope for a new spring again. My tears and my sorrows are all in vain. People are heartless, greedy and wicked. Love has died. The world has come to its end. Hope has ceased to have a meaning. Cities are being wiped out. Shrapnel is making music. Meadows are colored red with human blood. There are dead people on the streets everywhere. I will say another quiet prayer. People are sinners, Lord. They make mistakes. The world has ended. But what was the reality? Behind the headlines and the ghost stories, was there any actual evidence of a musical curse? The answer is no. According to the analysis, the urban legend appears to be a massive exaggeration. The 1930s were a time of unprecedented global hardship. The Great Depression, famine, poverty, and the terrifying rise of fascism created an atmosphere of profound hopelessness. Suicide rates in Hungary and across the world were already tragically high. Gloomy Sunday didn't create this despair. It was simply a piece of art that perfectly mirrored it. It gave a voice to a sadness that was already there. When tragic events occurred, the song became an easy, sensationalist scapegoat. It was a case of confirmation bias on a global scale. The majority of the alleged deaths linked to the song are impossible to verify. They exist as folklore, not as fact. And what of the composer, the man who started it all? Rezső Seress never found joy or fulfillment from his song's incredible fame. His life remained a struggle. Then, in January 1968, some 35 years after he wrote the song, Seress took his own life. He jumped from a window in Budapest, shortly after his 69th birthday. For believers in the curse, this was the ultimate proof, the song claiming its own creator. But the reality is far more heartbreaking. Seress was a man who had lived through the darkest chapters of the 20th century. His own demise wasn't the final act of a supernatural curse. It was the tragic conclusion to a long life of sorrow, a life that simply mirrored the melancholy standing of the melody he had created decades before. So, Gloomy Sunday was not a curse. It was a mirror. It was a song born from a world descending into war and depression. The original lyrics weren't about a single lost love, but about all love dying on earth. They were about cities turning to dust and a final desperate prayer for humanity. The version that became famous, the story of a heartbroken lover, was perhaps easier for the world to comprehend than the crushing, widespread despair of the original. But the sadness at its core remained. It's a song that speaks to the profound feeling of hopelessness when one believes that spring will never come again. So why does the urban legend persist? What does it say about us that we are so fascinated with the idea of cursed art? Perhaps we want to believe that art can have such power, that a melody can be so potent it can alter our reality. It's a more romantic notion than the complex, messy truth of human psychology and historical tragedy. In the end, Gloomy Sunday didn't kill anyone. It's a powerful, beautiful, and deeply sad piece of music. Its true legacy isn't the myth of the curse, but its role as an unintentional anthem for a world that felt, for a time, like it was ending. It didn't create the darkness, it simply provided the soundtrack. The notes have now gone silent. The narrative, complete. We've traveled a temptant trail of a tune, from the grim genesis of a composer's grief to the global ghost story it became. The song's supposed curse was a convenient cloak for a complex, crushing reality. A world reeling from widespread woe and unending anxiety. Gloomy Sunday was not a killer, it was a mirror, a mournful melody that mirrored the misery of its moment in time, a somber symphony for a sad, scarred society. So listen to its lonely lament not with fear, but with an understanding of the profound sorrow it spoke to. A beautiful and bleak ballad for a broken world.